joining us today. We'll begin the meeting. It's not a particularly heavy agenda with apologies, and we have received one from Councillor Stevens, who is changing attire as we speak. He may be here before the meeting is concluded, so if he is, it's an apology for lateness. If he doesn't arrive, it's an apology. Are there any other apologies? Not. Would someone like to move that the apology be recorded? Thank you, Lyndall. And seconded, Councillor Lloyd McCallum. Those in favour would say aye. Against, no. That's agreed. And that's good. Declarations of interest. Do we have any? Not move to item 4. Petitions and deputations. Are there any of those? I haven't been briefed that there are any. Right, let's move to the confirmation of the minutes. Item 5 on the agenda. I'd like to move that they be recorded as an accurate record of the meeting of the 18th of March.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to request
I'll get a seconder first. Right. Thank you, Nicole. So moved. Right. So comments, corrections, anything?
Not a correction, Mr. Chairman, but in item 8, there was a presentation, I understand, a video link that was going to be sent out to us. I understand that video link wasn't very good quality and it was hard to understand. I was wondering whether we could get some key data out of that for our records. It was a really enlightening presentation, and I don't really, as far as I'm aware, we don't have any formal.
Right. It's probably a lot of matters that might arise out of the minutes, but yep.
We'll take that note down.
So how are we going to do that? By just a written draft, or are we going to try and tidy up the presentation?
We will look at the presentation and what the issues are and furnish you with the most appropriate.
Yeah, there were some pertinent points in there that councillors may like to refresh themselves about. So are there any corrections or alterations to the minutes? Not. Relation to the meeting, that the minutes be recorded as an accurate record. Those in favour would say aye. Against, no. That's agreed. Right, notification of extraordinary or urgent business. Do you have any? No. Questions? You're making great progress, team. Council Chairman and Councillor reports. Yeah, Chairman Nicol.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll just give a quick verbal report on a meeting I attended on Friday at Queenstown. It was Damien O'Connor came down to announce the $100 million fund over 4 years for tackling the wilding pine issue. Not all of which it's obviously a New Zealand-wide thing, but obviously quite end up in the Otago and southern regions, I guess, where some pretty major programs have been underway for some years, including, of course, Mid-Dome, where we have also been supporting that project for some years. So he was saying that he'd initially put in the $100 million bid, but it had been knocked back, but with the COVID shovel-ready response projects had been reinstated. So there has one of the small positives, I guess, of what we've gone through is that actually that funding is there, and there is certainly a lot of excitement with the groups that are involved in this, that the funding will hopefully be sufficient to actually knock back things to where at the end of the 4 years, hopefully we'll be just in an ongoing mop-up stage. So that's, that's good news for South and as well as the rest of the country.
So the period over time that's available is?
It's to be spent over 4 years, so I'm not sure whether it's 25 million a year or whether it's staggeredly. It didn't seem to be a lot of details apart from was the announcement, and it had just been for a fly around part of the Queenstown area, and the venue was the skyline and looking out at the outstanding landscapes. I think most people were in agreement we don't want to lose those iconic views and with wildings, and as some people know, that those areas have been affected in the past. So all it was quite good. I just, unfortunately, I let him off when he sat down. He said I could answer questions, but you're about to have a meal served, and I'm still kicking myself. I didn't ask about the NES on forestry, but never mind.
Okay. Any other reports? Okay. I'll move that the report be noted. Thank you, Bonnie. Seconded. Linda, all those in favour say aye. Against, no, that's agreed. General Manager, Policy and Planning Regulatory Services, item 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just invite Alex to come forward and present his item.
I'd like to hear from you as to how long you want me to draw this out, given that it's the only item on the agenda. I can probably
Spellbind us.
for a good long while.
Enthrall us.
So this item is a standing item, just an overview of our policy work program as it stands. As you'll be well aware, some of the bigger work programs that we've got underway have been impacted quite severely by the global pandemic and the impacts of things like the floods, the reduction in income that we're experiencing as a result of those combined forces. Has meant that we've had to take a bit of a look at what we're proposed to deliver and how we're going to do that, and had to stretch some timelines. So that will impact largely the coastal and air plan reviews, the delay of the coastal plan stuff, which was being progressed at pace with the heavy reliance on external service providers now being handled more and more in-house, but coming with the appropriate level of time delay that will incur. On the subject of the coastal plan work, I know that councillors will be interested in an update about the Tohoroa paper. I think it's popped up a few times as a matter of interest. We've got the information back from the community in relation to that that piece of consultation, and have been working on a report that we will continue to present back to councillors as part of the coastal plan briefings process. And I believe that is currently scheduled for sometime in early July. Once we've done that, we'll have a look at how we might be able to share some of that information online. The water and land plan work, we had initially been told by the court at some point earlier in the year when COVID struck that the hearing dates would be postponed until August. Relatively recently, we heard from the court that they intend to push the hearing forward. There was some time available early next week to undertake the hearings. So we will be in hearings on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and possibly Thursday, Friday next week if the Thursday, Friday are needed. The purpose of those hearings will be to traverse objectives, primarily objectives 1 and 3. So we will hear from all the various expert witnesses, expert planning witnesses, and legal submissions in relation to those 2 points. We had a pre-hearing conference on Friday where we talked about the procedural matters, and the court provided some instruction about what we might be able to usefully discuss at a hearing. But I think positive news that there's some traction in that process, and it's moved ahead a bit faster because the delay until August was starting to push things out further and further and further. I have scheduled some time to update councillors in a briefing in July, around about the time we might expect to issue a further interim decision. So there is a change in some of the recommendations to what I've told council previously, and that's just a direction from the court. And we obviously have the appeals subcommittee, Women and Appeals subcommittee that we've established, and as needed, we will start to use that committee to look at the points under appeal beyond objectives 1 and 3. The court has indicated that mediation may be possible for the remainder of the objectives, which is departure from what I've said previously. So again, I'll keep council up to date as to how that's working and be in touch with councillors as needed as we work through the finer points of resolving the appeals when we may not need to change our position. I guess I might also usefully describe, because I know it's a matter of great interest, and we've got to page 14, the announcement of the Essential Fresh Water Package. One thing that I said previously is what more influence might we be used to be able to have in relation to that process? My answer is at this stage, none. We lodged a submission on the earlier draft of the Essential Freshwater program and provided input on behalf of council at that stage. The package is now under development and due to be considered by cabinet within the next month or so. So the opportunities for us to provide input would be limited to none. We have seen some summary material about what the outcomes of that process might look like, and once we get more and more of that information, we'll continue to evaluate what it might mean for processes that we have underway, such as the appeals process and the incident plan change to come. So I guess that's a broad summary of the main things that are happening. In acknowledging next agenda item, we probably will have some matters for the Strategy and Policy Committee to make decisions on, and that includes a submission on the national air quality, national environmental standards for air quality, and also a piece of work that's going on about some transfer of functions in relation to dams. So those are the things that you can look for next time and to have a fuller agenda for you.
All right, Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've got two things. One is under the coastal review, we have had some work. This is coming, so my comments are about what's coming. We have some comments about the marine reserves around the coast. I understand we're looking at that plan through Otago right up into Canterbury. Can we get a better understanding of what those marine reserves would look like under that coastal plan? It would be better eyesight onto that would be helpful in the future. But my other comment, Mr. Chairman, is that this work plan is work plan for the committee, and we have outside partners. My understanding is that Hokanui have put themselves in a slightly different position than the rest of the other Runanga, and I'd like some clarity about who we have around the table. Do we have the right people? Who's speaking on behalf of iwi in the wider context? Because I'd rather have that discussion now than end up further down the track and find that we had innocently excluded parties that we should have been talking to.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I'll just read through here too, is that the Southland Economic Project regional forum to be taken through the model, shown through the economic models. Will we do that the same with the council? It's pretty important that we understand it too fully.
Yes, I appreciate your opinion, Councillor. So maybe don't have some of the experience working through the finer points of that model. So if a briefing is needed there, yeah, absolutely.
And a reminder for Mr.
Emma, who is the project lead for that component, was sitting back here, but has disappeared to do something else. But yeah, I suppose as an update there, the model is largely complete and ready for input. We are designing the parameters around how we might usefully input information or receive information from the regional forum to input into that model. I was much dismayed after choosing a career in words that Emma sent me a formula to read and understand. But yeah, so there's work underway about how we can develop a useful set of instructions for people who might want to test parameters within that model. And I think also importantly, instructions around how to interpret the outputs, because it's quite a complicated bit of equipment and it gives us some really interesting but complex results. So how can we present the information the model gives us to stakeholders, including the forum and council, in a way that's useful for decision making?
Yeah, just a further question there. It's really, I'm seeing a lot of resource wrapped around the forum and upskilling, which is fantastic. And we need, as a council, I think we need to match that. due respect to the councillors, of course, but when these discussions get to the pointy end later on, we need to be aware of everything that's being said in the context of those conversations.
I thought you were following on from Councillor McCallum, and I think we probably should see if there's a response to his questions. We can jump to another minute. Nothing wrong with that, but that was my assumption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to Councillor Callum's question around EV involvement in the planning process, in particular the coastal plan, of course, we have been working closely with Te Marama. There has been a relationship challenge between Te Marama and the Hokonui Runanga. However, the work that has been going on in the coastal plan that has been led by either consultants or Ngāi Tahu representatives have ensured that the Hokonui Runanga have been around the table in all discussions and fed in appropriately. The ongoing issues of relationship with respect to Te Marama is a matter that the Te Marama board is actually actively progressing, and so we have in place arrangements to ensure that where Hokonui seeks to input or be involved, they can and are involved in that process, in the planning process. With respect to other regulatory areas such as consents and other, we're working specifically with Hokonui Runanga on those matters separately to other arrangements with Te Marama.
Nicol?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a query on the Environment Court. Good to know the venue. Are the public able to sit in as they were in the earlier stages or not?
Through you, Chair, the venue is in Christchurch.
Oh, Christchurch. Okay, so a bit far away.
There is some, the court is providing some means to link in by audio visual link. I sought clarity from them yesterday over whether that link is public or whether we need to nominate specific people to receive that link, because I know that not just councillors but a few people in the active staff here are keen to sit in on that, and if I can share that link around, I'll happily do so. The court process and the hearing is a public process, so I would hope that the court has done all it can to make that available for us to log into, but I'll get clarity and I can provide some information back about that.
And through you, Mr. Chair, the court has specifically sought people to request the link. So there is obviously some procedural matters that they are managing at their end. So,
and that's the question I have sought clarity from the court. Is it a live stream such as we're doing now, where people can just tune in, or is it more of a situation where those who tune in are on the video call themselves, in which case they would want to more closely manage it. But I can, like I say, sort advice and can provide some information.
Any other questions? Can I make a suggestion in terms of the process for our next meeting? If I look at the action plan, we've got a lot of things that are ongoing. I've kind of gotten a little bit out of touch. And what I'd like to know is some deadlines that some of these things have got to be completed, so they're not just springing up on us. So if their time frame is out beyond this year, that may not be important, but I'd certainly like to get a feel for where we're at with some of these things that are just listed as underway or ongoing, if that's not too difficult.
I can perhaps, through you, Chair, answer that question now. Quite a lot of the work programs that we deal in are longer term work programs.
Yep.
There are deadlines along the way, but where the main deadlines we work to will be such as the requirement in the NPSFM to have a freshwater plan with limits in place by a particular date. We have to build back from those.
I don't think we need it now, but just for the next time, I think it would be helpful if we just had a feel for what's coming down the track. Yep. Well, time frame was. Yeah, Councillor Ludlow.
I would like to reinforce that request actually, because it impacts on the risk management conversations that we also need to have. You know, if we're at risk of not achieving things or whatever, then we need to be well informed about that. So
absolutely.
I'd reinforce that request. Thanks.
Councillor McFarlane.
I've just got a question, Chair, in regards to Christchurch venue.
Is this because of COVID, or is this is it all legal? There's actually more people up there, is it- or just an explanation why?
I'm not 100% sure why. I suspect it's a combination of things. That's where the judge is based from. That's where the venue was available within short notice. They've packed out their calendar as soon as they were able to. So I think we just have to roll with that particular punch. I will be in attendance to provide instructions over the start of next week. But yeah, not ideal for us or some of the other parties either.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Mr. Jeremy, too, it just seems ridiculous in this kind of austerity that we're going into. We're going to be dragging a lot of people from here to Christchurch. I would assume that that would be the case. And just to pick up on what's been said, with a lot of things coming together at once around this plan that our building land, we've got the regional forum, environment court, the plan itself, government's central freshwater, and we've got Te Mana O Te Wai. How do all those things converge to one? And that's the challenge around communication, because it's so confusing for people that know a lot about this stuff, let alone the public. So, and that goes around the time frames you're talking about and how it works.
Would you like me to
Give us a
a
steer on
brief
some
explanation about how all
of
of those
the
components
thinking
fit
of
together?
how all those components will mesh into one on the day you push the button.
So through you, Chair, as Councillor McDonald has indicated, there's numerous complex parts of this equation that are all in various stages of completion at the same time. Council's intent was always to have a two-stage approach to implementing the NPSFM. And if we put aside for the moment the changes that are coming, that two-stage process was identified in our has been identified in our progressive implementation program, whereby we would undertake the development of a new plan, which is the water and land plan, to set the foundation for the limit setting component to come. So that water and land plan is the matter before the court now and under appeal. My dearest wish is that that process resolves as quickly as possible so that everyone can have certainty about the foundation from which we have to work from. But notwithstanding that, we were always under a commitment to deliver our revised limit setting freshwater plan change in accordance with the timeframes in the existing 2017 NPS or the 2014 NPS before that. Through the other work programs that we've got underway, of which Bonnie back there and Rachel are leading as part of the regional forum work and the People, Water and Land program as a whole, we are endeavouring to have a community-focused approach with council approval at the end of the day to deliver on that package of limits that is the plan change to come. Given where we are in the staging there, we're reasonably well positioned to absorb the changes that are coming as a result of the new NPSFM and the various other bits of documentation that are around that. We won't have a choice. It's a national government piece of direction that instructs us in what we need to achieve. But we are set up quite well in terms of that program and the timing that it's at to look at what changes are coming. And over the next years out to 2024, whenever we're required to have notified, I think it's 2024, give by that stage full implementation to the NPS. So yes, there's a lot of things that are live, but they intend to come together at the end of the day in our plan change that is based off the foundation provided in the plan.
If we could have a conceptual idea of how what you've described in a way, a diagram or something like that, how everything can come. Well, the plan is to come together, and the plan itself is the cornerstone of everything. That everything goes into that. That's what I'm assuming you're saying. That could be conveyed to the wider public. There's a lot of confusion about there of what's going on, and where's it going, or what's going to happen. So thanks very much.
Not a problem. It's an unfortunate consequence of this work that it is quite complex. So communicating it is important, and communicating it simply is quite a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any other questions? Acknowledge, Councillor Holcomb.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just following on from that Peter's question and the discussion. We are fortunate or unfortunate in the fact that we have a plan change going through while all this other stuff's going on. Some of the decisions that come out of the Environment Court will become case law, and we are being burdened with a bit of extra expense because it is a changing scene. So I'm hopeful, and I'm sure it will when we get to topic B, that it should be back in Invercargill, because the final plan, even though some of it may be superseded by national instruments, is a Southland plan, and it'd be good for people to be able to sit and understand it as it goes through those final processes.
Through you, Chair, just to address some of that, but when we get to topic B, we expect to be able to mediate, which may mean that appeals points resolved more quickly, but will not be, hopefully as intensive on the court's resources, because we will just need to return to the court to have them sign off on any points that have been.
Just to add to what Alex has said, mediation is behind closed doors. It is not open to the public. It is only open to the representatives who are assigned to actually do that mediation. So it is quite a closed process. It's only when the court actually sits is it then open to the public generally.
Councillor Ludlow.
On an entirely different topic, Chairman, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Just thinking about the air plan, Alex, and in the conversations we've previously had about a review or a look at the Clean Air Loans scheme and the Healthy Homes work. Is that, I know it's a different procedural level, but will that fit into that work? Because we've been talking about finding a better space for those discussions, and strategy and policy might be that place. So is there scope for that to come in that work?
Potentially, yes. From my opinion, there's scope for that to proceed as a discrete piece of work outside of the air plan review, but there are obviously multiple signatories to those loan schemes and how it operates, so I wouldn't want to preempt.
No, but currently it comes
that,
up, the topic comes up in OPAC, which really only looks at the financial, ins and outs, basically. But there's a wider discussion to be had. So I wonder how we progress moving that discussion to this committee.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, through your request for this item to come through to strategy and policy, we will look at it coming through to strategy and policy, have an item on this agenda with respect to the efficacy of that loan scheme.
That would be excellent. Thank you.
All right. Acknowledge Councillor Stevens has arrived before the meeting concluded. Hope you managed to change the tyre satisfactorily. We put an apology for lateness for you. So, right, were there any other questions, comments or discussion points in relation to item 1? If not, would someone like to move the recommendation? That will be noted. Councillor McCallum moved, seconded. Councillor Ludlow, I'll put the question. Those in favour would say aye. Against, no. That's agreed.
Right.
I'm not aware that there's any extraordinary or urgent business or publicly excluded business, so the meeting is concluded at 9:31 AM. Thank you.